We're at Catalina State Park. We're on site 3, campground B.
Money don't come easy, so most of us are chained to being busy till we can earn a little peace of mind. What does it mean to be free in this American dream?
Charlotte, you're not going night.
Help me believe life is more than what we've been told it's supposed to be.
That's pulling over to say hello.
So what's your favorite part of this park so far?
Riding the bike.
Yeah, it's great for riding bikes.
Yeah.
What's
It's
your
like
favorite
so
part?
flat. Training.
Training?
Yeah.
Yeah. Practicing?
Yeah.
You're what? Practicing what?
My scooter and my bike.
Sign. Please help me out. Frustrated this is the selfish world that we've been given. Oh, can we try and help each other out? So la la let me be. La la let me be. La la let me be free. La la let me be. La la let me be. La la let me be free. So what does it mean to be free in this American dream? Oh, help me believe life is more what we've been told, what we've been told, what we've been told, what we've been told. So la la let me be. La la let
Just a little frosted up this one.
Daddy, I want to go fast. Charge! Go! Go ahead, go ahead.
Hold on, Char.
Come on, y'all, go.
Stop and take a picture.
Somebody do. La 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 la. Somebody do. La 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 la. Those are red ants. Those were red ants. They're humongous.
Or not at all. Drop the stick.
Sorry.
Logan, how was your hike? Are you worn out? Tired? Need a shower? You hungry? Someone's got her babies on her. Little fire, a little sunshine. Look at that little tent trailer. This is a beautiful state park. I like this song. Let's see.
Daddy, can I go?
There is this house on the stones like a
Yeah.
piece of redwood.
Nothing better than my little boobs.
Cover me up.
Everything is awesome.
Here you go.
What you got, man?
Chocolate donuts.
Sweet. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Nice breakfast outfit,
Oh,
Pops.
yeah.
Or
Val said he looked homeless.
We found a homeless man here. He smelled our chocolate donuts and wandered in.
11, 8, 9, 10. Ready or not, here I come. Found you. I got up here for no reason. I guess. I know my way. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you guys are staying with me. No, we don't have to, Logan. And who will guard me? You guys let me have any scissors.
What are you guys doing?
That won't cut that. I already tried to. Trying to make. Thank you.
You making crafts?
Yes. This one's mine.
Logan, did you make that on your helmet there? That looks cool.
Yeah, I did. Here. Logan keeps complaining about the scissors. I asked first, so I get them.
We're on the Romero Ruins Trail.
It looked like it, but it's different.
I like these cactus. That's cool. What is that, big guy? What's that called?
I don't know.
You just said it.
Barrel.
Barrel what?
Cactus.
Cactus. Barrel cactus. Look how sharp and pointy they are. It's like a porcupine.
They hurt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Clay.
What are y'all sitting on?
Ancient bench, apparently. Here's some pottery.
Apparently.
A trash mound.
Trash mound.
Oh, here's some clay sticks to go down in the flood, and they would grab some pottery, and then they would do everything with their hands, and then they have some of these. These are all.
Logan.
These three are the potteries that I found. Here's a rock that they kill some animals with. It's really cool.
Let's have a look around.
And here are all of them together.
Oh, you want me to look at them again?
Pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Since he's frozen, she's on the table. Oh, somebody knows she's in trouble. What'd you do? What'd you do?
Besides that treasure that we found, which I think makes it really important location, is at its height there was as many as 200 to 300 people living here at one time, and nobody can explain why. It's one of the largest village sites that you're going to find in the entire Tucson Valley, and it's hard to know why there were so many people here, because there's other places in Tucson where you have better water, better farming, better resources than you're going to find here. But the bigger population was at this spot. So in the 1400s, they just up and disappeared. And of course, that's one of the big mysteries too. Why after 1,000 years of surviving here with no trouble at all, do you just disappear? At the same time that the Hohokam people were living here, and they lived in Arizona just like we do today. I mean, they had the same population centers. The majority of them were in Phoenix, Tucson, and Casa Grande, just like we have today. The saguaro and the prickly pear, which we have down here, both have a lot of sugar in it as well. And you'll see today, particularly around Tucson, there's a lot of stuff in every restaurant and store you go to that is made out of prickly pear something or other. We use it for jellies, jams, candies, syrups, drinks, you name it. We put that in there because that one's easy to harvest. Not so much on the saguaro, which should be your first question. How do you pick fruit off the top of a saguaro? And the answer is very carefully. Right, yeah. So, what they figured out though is the internal structure on the saguaro. You have these woody ribs that go up through the center of it, and they're about halfway around you'll see a dead one where the ribs are just sticking up. And then there's this dense spongy material packed in all around it. Throughout the years we get a little bit of rain. You'll see these things actually expand and contract as we get more or less water. When they die though, that spongy material will rot away and you're left with these long woody ribs. And they would take a couple of those, tie them together and fashion a fork on top, and then you can sit and pluck the fruit off as soon as it ripens up. Because if you don't get it right away, there won't be anything left for you, because everything out here is trying to eat it. Every bird, insect, you name it, is trying to get that. If you wait for them to fall off on their own, there's just not much left there. And they would gather up that fruit, put it in a big pot with some boiling water, and then the husk and the seeds will all float to the top. You can skim that off and you're left with this really rich, dark red, syrupy material, which you can use for a food source, but they also used it to dye their pottery with. So they would coat that pot with it, and then it would help make it watertight, so they could store the water and other materials and it would last a lot longer. They would also use it to tan their animal hides with to make those last a little bit longer as well. Now the life cycle on the saguaro is pretty fascinating too. The reason why we have 2 national parks in Tucson on the east and west side dedicated to one plant is because we don't know how long these things can live. There's no way to date them like you can a tree where you can ring it. So you just have to watch them pop out of the ground, document that, and watch them grow. And we know these things can go hundreds of years. We just don't know how many hundreds. So the way the life cycle works is you'll get that big fruit on it in the springtime. Birds will come over, eat the seeds, come over, land on one of these trees and deposit the seed with some manure at the bottom. And that is crucial in the life cycle of the saguaro, because when they first pop out of the ground, they're about the size of your little finger. They don't have all those big needles on it yet. And so anything that would walk over the top of it would just crush it. And I know this sounds weird for a cactus, the first couple of years they're really susceptible to sunburn. They can just burn up out here. So what they do is they use the tree, we call them nurse trees, and the other plants around it for protection. And there's a good example right behind me here where you can see that seed got deposited there, and it used the tree and the bushes and stuff to protect it until it could grow up and get big enough to take on its own. And there's another 15-footer right behind the nurse tree right over there that got established, and that's how they survive out here and propagate. So this big guy, we're guessing that's probably 250, maybe 300 years old. We're really not sure. So maybe another 10 generations from now, people will know. We just don't really have an idea right now. So the arms on those things, they will pop out somewhere typically between 50 and 75 years, depending on how much water it's getting. If it's in an area that gets a little more water, they'll come out sooner and get more and more. If you go from like here to Phoenix, as it dries out, you'll notice the cactus don't have as many arms, and they don't tend to get arms upon arms like this one has here. What you have here are examples of pottery. So this is just broken pieces of pottery laying on the ground, and I will do a show and tell a little later where we'll pass stuff around, the better stuff that I've seen. This is just stuff that's littered all over out here. When we get that flooding activity where it eddies on the edges, it'll collect this denser material, and they would go down and get this stuff to help make their pots out of. First, you got to go find your clay down there, dig it out with a stick or a rock or your hands, and bring it up here to the village site, and then form it by hand into whatever shape you think will be useful to you. And you can see these guys were really good at doing this. This stuff is very thin and it's very smooth on the outside. Actually walk off the trail, and it's because we actually have a little bit of a structure here. And what this is the remains of Francisco Romero's ranch house. So again, he was a Spanish settler in the 1800s in Tucson. And if you're not familiar with Tucson, if you're from out of town, not a lot of people realize it is the second oldest European city in the United States. So the first people to really come out here and do some exploration were the Spanish, right? They hit Florida first. They built St. Augustine, Florida. That's #1. Then they went down into Mexico and rooted around down there for a while, and then worked their way up this direction, and Tucson was city #2. So it predates everything on the East Coast by a bit. Anyway, so he was in Tucson, decided to establish a cattle ranch, came out here, found the remains of the Hohokam Village site, and he thought, well, if it worked for them, it'll work for me too. And he used the same building materials that they did, rocks and mud. That was it, but this was his whole house. Not very big compared to what we're used to living in today. Fireplace over there, front door. Everybody ate, slept, stored your materials in here. Now, unfortunately for him, the same time that he was out here, the Apache Indians, like I said, called this part of their hunting range. And they thought it was just great that he brought out these big docile animals that are easy to catch, and they taste delicious when you put them on a fire. So he spent most of his time trying to keep the Apache Indians from taking his cattle from him. Now, he had the advantage of having a rifle, and they were still mostly using bow and arrow technology at the time he was out here. But after about a dozen years, he just gave up. He couldn't take it anymore, moved back into Tucson so he could have that protection. His relatives still live there today. They'll come out here once in a while, look at the old homestead place, and there's actually another little building that was right over there. We're not sure if that was also a living area or storage shed, or maybe that's where the horse got to hang out. But they told me that they knew he was a really tough old guy because passed down through the last few generations. They said that when he died and they went to bury him, he had lance and arrow marks in multiple places on his body where they got him. He would just pull that out, sew it up, and keep going. You can see the outline of the 3 walls. Right here would have been closed off in front, but again, not a very big structure. And there were a lot of these littered all over in these foothills here, because again, they had as many as 200 to 300 people at the height of their civilization. Now, they did some things out here that Romero didn't figure out because he wasn't here long enough. They were here for 1,000 years. And so there's some design features to this that are kind of interesting. First off, on the walls here, they're nice and thick, as you can see, but the rocks are placed on purpose. They're not just random. The ones on the outside are on edge, and then the ones in the center are flat. It just kind of helped hold everything better together. The other thing that they did that Romero didn't figure out is they would dig down in the ground first as much as 2 to 3 feet, which up here in these foothills isn't necessarily an easy thing to do, but it helps keep you nice and cool in the summertime. Just like the animals, which they were probably emulating, they burrow underground to stay cool. These guys were doing the same thing. Also means you don't have to build your walls quite as high, so it saves on resources. No fireplace in here. They would have done all external communal cooking. Occasionally in the winter time, you have a cold day like this, you might bring some hot rocks inside to help warm it up. But if you put 5 or 6 people in one of these, because we're just little batteries and it's really well insulated, body heat alone will help keep this thing warm in the winter time. So the roof, was probably saguaro ribs and tree branches woven together, and then the whole thing was packed with mud, which means it's really heavy and there has to be some kind of support structure there. And we didn't know what this was until we got extremely lucky, and that's usually what happens with archaeology. You just get lucky. They built the home a little too low down to the ground and it got buried in a flood. The whole thing was just still there, as opposed to what you see left behind here. And inside, when we went in there, there were 2 pine pole logs holding that roof up as a support structure. Well, where do you have to go from here to find a pine tree? All the way up there, top of Mount Lemmon. Now, I've hiked there. You can do that in a day. It's not easy, but you can get there. But then go up there and cut down a pine tree with a rock, because that's all they had. So they would take a rock axe head, attach that to a stick, and see how long that'll take you to cut a pine tree down with something like that. That is a chore. Once it gets cut down, you're going to shape it to the size you want and then haul it all the way back down here. And again, there were a lot of little homes scattered in here. Now, as you go away from the mountain range, some of the other village sites that are close by will be built the same way, but as you get a little bit further away, the housing structure completely changes because you don't have the ability to haul that material that far, so they become more like grass huts in the other locations that are away from the mountain.